America's game. I pick up my bat and I take a swing for the fence. Nothing but broken glass grounds out in my residence. But maybe now my cry will be heard. You see, I learned this game from history. We spent centuries in the outfield. Thought that inning was over, but Jim Crow had to bat still. There were a lot of runs scored. And my team, we tried to play catch up. But the rules of the game and fairness never seemed to quite match up. You see, we fought for civil rights so that we could share that diamond. But racism continued to knock them out the park while we were in the back, wall climbing. Fast forward to the 80s and what appeared to be free bases, but that was just a trap for those trying to run in those races. I mean, of course we were called out. That free base was never safe. Sometimes we were baited to steal, and that's just a chance that we take. Now, I'm not justifying jacking, but all teams are robbing, son. I'm just saying call it fair in this game we've begun. So often when my people get their chance to bat, they get tossed wild pitches which make contact with their bodies. And if there's even the question that we might charge the mound, then any force is justified in bringing us down to the ground. We can't let this slide, not with error after error after error after error. Our team can be stepping up to bunt and people are nervous with terror. Pitchers throw ball after ball just hoping that we'll walk. But too often we don't make it home. I'm calling time out for a talk so we can change this whole game, recreate the whole structure. One where Black Lives Matter and there's respect for the other. Wow. Change. Respect. Are they really on deck? Do the fans in the stands even want to see that? Just check our entertainment and how our team is viewed. Our pitches have to have some curves or at least be screwed. But this fastball has no bad call. It's right in your strike zone. Get off the pine, put it on the line, and maybe you can hike home. The important thing in this sort of dream and this mid must fit is we may have short stops and score drops, but we will not quit. You know, I think we thought this game was over, but we're just entering the stretch. Civil rights, that was the warm-up. We ain't seen nothing yet. And I know some people say we're good. I really see no need to complain. But we can't rest on this quest until we change this game. So my question to each and every one of you is, how will you step up to the plate?
You can hear their excitement. This small group from Durham is aimed to keep kids away from drugs, gangs, and engaged in school.
I love the group. I really am glad that I joined it.
11-year-old Joshua from Eno Valley Elementary says the We Are Kings program for boys of color is teaching him valuable lessons.
I can make a difference in my community. I could stand out. I could be different. I could be better.
A word that resonates every time they recite the King's Creed.
I just get so excited because this is just the beginning.
Jermaine Porter leads the program that boasts 600 boys. This school year, he launched the We Are Kings program in 15 of DPS's elementary, middle, and high schools. Black and brown boys make up 40% of Durham Public Schools' student population. This group's effort is to reduce the achievement gap, school-to-prison pipeline, boost literacy, and motivate students like Braden Keith to be leaders.
The most important way of the Kings is how you carry yourself.
Today, the students visited the International Civil Rights Museum in Greensboro, where they learned about the national sit-in movement, first started here by 4 black men at A&T.
Why is this important?
I think it's important for our future, all right? So especially we're here at the International Civil Rights Museum in Greensboro. The students are understanding where they come from. They are our future.
It made me feel like I was actually really there at the time watching it, and it was just a great experience, just knowing your history and what they had to go through in order for segregation to stop.
We Are Kings hopes to be a model for other school districts.
I feel like it made a difference in my life, and it could make a difference in everyone else's.
Tim Pulliam, ABC 11 Eyewitness News.
Welcome to King's Conversations. My name is Jermaine Porter. I am the Boys of Color Initiative Coordinator for Durham Public Schools.
And my name is Dr. Daniel Kelvin Bullock. I'm the Executive Director for Equity Affairs for Durham Public Schools. Welcome and thank you for joining us for this first installment of King's Conversations.
We're so excited that many of you decided to join us on this Thursday evening, the day after the inauguration. You decided you're going to spend some time with the Office of Equity Affairs, and we appreciate it. But we need your help a little bit more. We need you to go ahead. We need you to tag us. If you're on Facebook, we need you to share. If you subscribe on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. We need you to get the word out that King's Conversations is about to go down. What is King's Conversations? King's Conversation is an opportunity for us to listen to males of color, professional males of color, just to hear their perspective and how they got to where they are today. Lucky, Dr. Bullock, we have two Durham High School alumni joining us today. First, I'd like to introduce, he went to Durham Hillside. He is a Paralympian. He will be participating in the Olympics this year. I give you Desmond Jackson.
Yeah.
Desmond, thank you so much for joining us, man. Glad to have you.
Hey, happy to be here.
Next, we have a young man who graduated from Riverside High School. He is a veteran NFL free agent. I give you guys Wesley Saunders. Wesley, I see you throwing up the Bull City early.
Come on now.
Guys, we're so happy to have you. Happy that you guys decided to join us. I want to go ahead and get started because I know you guys so much stuff going on, and Wesley's out there in Haiti joining us, living above the clouds. We see the clouds in the background.
Come on now, we're in Haiti, baby. It's historically relevant.
We understand. We appreciate you, Wes. We appreciate you taking the time to join us. But before we do get started, I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to follow these outstanding men on social media. If you like to follow Desmond, he's on Instagram at Desmond Andre Jackson. Desmond Andre Jackson is on Instagram if you want to follow him. We have Wes Saunders. His IG and his Twitter are the same, Wes_88. We'll put this back up towards the end if you want to make sure you follow these wonderful young men. We want to get started with the first question, get started with our conversation. Welcome once again. Tag your friends, share. Let's make this thing pop for Durham Public Schools and the Office of Equity Affairs. Dr. Bullock.
All right. So if y'all could just please briefly tell us about yourself and explain why you agreed to participate in this conversation with some of the young men in our King's programs.
You can go first, Wes.
Oh, appreciate it, man. Appreciate it, my brother. Well, I just want to start off by saying thank you guys for having me, man. This is a wonderful program you guys have put together. For me to explain why I even wanted to participate in a program such as this, it should go without saying, man. This is something that our community needs as Black men. This is something going forward that we're going to have to start talking about more as far as how we're feeling in the world, emotional intelligence, mental health, things of that nature. And I know this, the sooner that we can get this conversation rolling, the sooner lives can change. You know, I grew up in Durham, North Carolina. My dad was a writer for the Raleigh News and Observer. So, you know, he was very committed to my persistence in education and understanding myself, understanding my culture, understanding my heritage. And the older I get, I understand how important that is, because, you know, if you grow up without knowing where you're from or where you come from, or the people who've come behind you, then you probably won't know where you're going. So this is an imperative conversation that we need to have, and I'm blessed to be having this with you guys.
And my name is Desmond Jackson. I'm a Paralympian. And I wasn't born in Durham, but I was raised in Durham. And I can honestly say, like, I'm only 21 years old, and I just know the struggles and challenges I went through as a young Black man, and I know so many other kids are going through the same thing. So I just want to be able to share my experience and my knowledge, and, you know, try and help somebody out there.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys for joining us. You being here says a lot about your commitment to wanting to give back to the community, as well as wanting the advancement for boys of color. I want to stop for a second to shout out all the Kings who are watching, be it with their coordinator on Zoom. I see Eno Valley is in the building on their Zoom. Shout out to Dr. Hardy and his crew from Eno Valley. He has everybody tuned in on Zoom. But what we want to talk about, so DPS started the Boys of Color Initiative a few years ago in a way to improve academic, social, emotional outcomes for boys of color. Prior to us coming on, we saw the piece about the We Are Kings program. But what are some ways that educators have positively impacted you as a man of color in your life's outcomes? Wesley, we'll go with Wesley. Well, Des, Wesley went first last time. We go with you. Go ahead, Des.
I would say educators, for me, there's a few that have been more than just that. They've been mentors and advisors to me. Growing up as a kid, you know, just trying to figure out who I am as a person. And they've helped me in the way of guiding me in the right direction. So many educators come from different backgrounds. A lot of them, for me at least in Durham, they came from different countries. And it's, you know, it's been a huge benefit to me to be around such people, because as a kid, you only know what your environment is. So, you know, having those kind of people in your life, they open you up to new opportunities and new experiences.
Great, thank you. Wes. Did Wes freeze?
Yeah, I think he froze.
I think he may have frozen.
Yeah, Wes may be temporarily frozen. So,
Wes, yeah. So, well, I appreciate that. We had another Kings Org group join us, Southwest. Mr. Cox, thank you so much for adding Southwest to us. Des, you said something that was very powerful there, right? You said that you had multiple people, right, to impact you. Can you just share, or if you can remember, what grade was it when you had a teacher first take interest in Des, and they really showed you that they cared about who you were?
I would say for me, where it stood out was when I was in 6th grade. It was my math teacher, and I kind of struggled in math as a kid, and just coming from, you know, a single parent household, and just really what caught me off guard was I had a white teacher, right? And I never experienced having, you know, someone a Caucasian person actually take interest in me. So that really just like kind of made me look at not only her differently, but just white people in general in a positive light. Because I mean, you know, growing up in Durham, I grew up in pretty much an all Black neighborhood. So yeah, that was it though for me.
Great, I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing that.
I mean, and I just want to you know, say a little bit about that, because sometimes in our work we try to emphasize, you know, so those of us who are white educators, sometimes we have to go above and beyond to show that, you know, we value our Black students, we value them, their families, what they bring to the classroom, because that may not be just the the place that the students are coming from. Like, you may have to prove that, hey, I'm actually here for you, I support you, and I'm here to affirm you in what you're trying to do. So that's kind of what I'm hearing in your response there, that this person went above and beyond to really show, like, here, I'm here to support you, I care about you, and I want the best for you. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that too. And Dr. Bullock, you and I, we share and we talk whenever we're presenting about relationships and how important those relationships are. And for someone, teachers, to go above and beyond, that really shows, because sometimes teachers want to build relationships and they think they have, but sometimes the students like, nah, I just like you to get by, to get what I need to get. Is that, you understand what I'm saying, Dad? Whereas it isn't genuine, not from the student's perspective. The teacher may really be trying.
Yeah.
So, and we had Wesley back. Wes, welcome back. Glad you could join us.
Hey, like I said, guys, rain or shine, I'm gonna make sure I'm on this call. But I am in the high mountains of Haiti, Oblion, Kinskov. So I keep getting kicked off, man. But I'm gonna keep getting back on. I do apologize once again.
We good. You can stop bragging about where you are, but you good. Look, check this. Hey, Wes. So tell us some ways educators positively impacted you as a man of color in your life outcome.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. Especially me coming up in Durham, man. My educators, they were very tough on me because I was pretty good at athletics from an early age, from Lakewood to Club Boulevard to Brogdon Middle School to Riverside High School, man. I've always been the dude in athletics. Now, sometimes in class, I would clown around a little bit. I would get bored. I would get, out of line. And the educators that actually cared about me the most were the ones who were hardest on me. Now, those were the same teachers who, I claim to have hated at the time, but they actually had my best interests at heart. And, they and some of them were coaches. Some of them were, were just really good teachers. But they were mostly teachers of color too, who took a liking to me and saw my potential before even I did.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So that was important for them.
Cool. So, Wes, we want to get to the next question on you before the mountains kick your internet go out. Dr. Bullock.
All right. So with this question, Wes, of course, there's been a lot of civil unrest in America this year and for the past few years. As Black men, we're just wondering, what are your thoughts about what you're seeing in the country? And what advice do you have for our young kings as they grow up as Black or brown boys in America? So we'll start with you, Wes.
Yeah, go out again. But yeah, man, this is unfortunately, this is nothing new under the sun. We've seen these things happen. Oh, I'm sorry, I lost you there for a second. Yeah, sorry, man. But yeah, we've seen these things happen in the country before. Now is the time for us to come together more as men. Like, even these conversations weren't had when I was in coming up in school. And what I'm saying? So now it's on us. It's on us to be more of who we are, find our purpose, to find our passion, and come together and let go of our egos so we can create something greater worldwide. That's even why I'm here in Haiti, to create a diaspora between African people or melanated people all over the world, because we have similar stories, whether that be in America, Haiti, South Africa, Australia. So, it's very important that we come together now.
Yeah. Thank you. And Desmond, what are your thoughts about what you're seeing going on, and advice you might have for some of the young men that we have in DPS?
I would say it's nothing new if we look back at our history. But the advice that I have for young kings is to treat people the way you want to be treated. Me personally, I've been mistreated as a Black man and also as a person with a disability, but nonetheless, that doesn't change how you should treat anybody. When somebody hits you, that doesn't mean you should hit them back. So, it never changes. And your character and your word is all you have to stand on.
Great. I appreciate that. I'm going to keep doing this as we go through, because our kings are in the building. Aaron Harris is also joined us. I appreciate those Kings from RN Harris, as well as Eastway is also here. But guys, real quick, as we're talking about the civil unrest, if you could share with me the first thing you thought about on January the 6th when you watched television at the Capitol building. Excuse me. We'll go with the edited version of what you first thought.
Okay. Sure. All right, cool. Just making sure how real we wanted to get with this, man. But my initial thinking was not one of surprise, but just one of just being convinced that everything that I thought to be true. There are a lot of people who have some very strong stances on what's going on in America, and of course, some people are heard more than others. And some people, and unfortunately, when we've been oppressed, we've been going out there, marching and hollering, and sometimes, unfortunately, it hasn't worked. So when the other side gets upset, we see how they respond in times of turmoil. So I think we can all learn from this and, become better from it.
Yeah, and Wes wasn't surprised, but I was surprised when I saw that. I mean, it was like watching TV. I mean, real TV, not the news. I never expected that to happen, but at the same time, people have strong opinions, even the other side, and all we can do is try and understand them and try and avoid violence and bring peace to the world. And that's really it.
Yeah, thank you. Also, for the people who are watching that are on Facebook, if you would like to ask a question to Des or Wes, if you would, you can put it in the comment section. We'll be able to get to those throughout the conversation. So, Des, you mentioned earlier about being disabled, right? So, talk to me or talk to us as a man of color. What are some of the challenges you had to face? The challenges you have to face in order for you to persevere to get to where you are today and to accomplish the wonderful things you have accomplished. Share with us about Des's story, if you will.
All right. So I've been an amputee all of my life. And I would just say to start off, the first thing that I had to figure out for myself was that I'm not really disabled, but people will still view me as being disabled. So I had to take that approach to where, people would ask me questions if I wore shorts, or, if I was trying to play a sport, people would view me differently. So that was a huge challenge for me. Like, we all know the story of how when teams are picked, and you're the last person picked on the team. That happened to me a lot. So, it's a mental battle above all things. And I feel like for me, I just overcame it through experiences and perseverance. I really walked through the fire. And like Wes said, it's a lot of conversations that we haven't had as a community, but we're starting to have them now. And it's going to continue to build in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. I wanted to ask Desmond, like with what you were saying about, I could see how things like that could possibly take away from your self-esteem or chip away at, your feeling of self-worth. What were some of the things that affirmed you, and not necessarily just in schools, but just in general, like what helped you to overcome or persevere or maintain or increase your level of self-worth in the midst of, those challenges?
Well, I mean, I walked through the fire. I went through a lot of different situations, and it's a saying that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And for me, that always gave me confidence. Like I failed many times, like literally, like I fell, running track, my leg would break, but I always got back up. And each time I got back up, it made me more confident and it made me persevere even more through any situation.
Great. So, Des, right now, question from Eno Valley Kings. They wanted to know what were some of the biggest challenges, right, the largest challenges that you had to face as a young man, not necessarily who you are now, because these are elementary school students that are asking the question. And how did you overcome those challenges?
I would say like my mom helped a lot, to be honest. When I first started elementary school, I went to QEI in Durham, for those that know. And like the first day of class, she came in and she talked to the whole class and just talked to them about differences and what it's like to be a disabled person. And I think that initial conversation, it helps them to understand as kids that everybody's different. And some differences you see and some you don't. I mean, some people are deaf in one ear. It's all kinds of different things, that kind of quirks that people have, right? So, yeah. I think, what was the second part of that question?
The question was, what was your biggest challenge and how you overcame the challenge?
My biggest challenges, obviously, as a kid, was self-esteem. A lot of kids are arrogant, like some kids, they just don't know. They don't know what they don't know. So I had to get used to kids asking me questions about my disability. And as a kid, I mean, it can be hard. It can be hard to be around your peers, and some might not accept you, maybe because they're scared of you, or they just, they're confused about who you are and the way you might walk or talk. And you just have to, it's like a rites of passage almost. You just have to go through it, and you have to talk about not only your challenges, but everything. You have to talk about it to your peers and to your parents and to your therapist, whatever it may be, because mental health is the most important aspect of that. Even with bullying, it's the same thing. So
appreciate it. Thank you so much, Des, for sharing. And I appreciate your transparency and your being vulnerable enough to share the things that you've gone through here with us today on this platform. Dr. Bullock, we have some reference for Wes as well.
Yeah. So, Wes, first of all, I want you to know one of our current principals, and I'm pretty sure was a Riverside teacher, shouted out on YouTube Saunders with 3 exclamation points. That was James Hopkins. So I don't know if you remember Mr. Hopkins from his teaching days.
Man, congratulations on the principal job, man. I had no clue.
Yeah, he is now one of our amazing principals in DPS, where he shouted you out on YouTube. My question for you is, Wes, there are quite a few boys of color who want to be able to play at the professional level like you have been able to do. What advice do you have for young student athletes who have these aspirations, and how important is it to develop athletically while also cultivating other skills and talents?
Oh yeah, that's a good one, man. Growing up in Durham, of course, that's everybody's goal, either go to the NFL or to the NBA. We're a very sports-driven area with all the colleges around. How could you not want to be a part of that? And that was something that I wanted from an early age. But my father was more pressed about what was going in my brain, what I was learning, the knowledge I was attaining. So I put myself in some predicaments sometimes, thinking that I could get away with things purely because of my athleticism when I wasn't taking care of what I needed to do in the classroom. So being that I saw how balanced I had to become in order to continue to play, because my dad wasn't going to play that. So I understood that, okay, get serious about schooling. What passions do I have that interests me? I love writing. I love reading. I could take things in my brain and put it down on paper and create something special. So I knew I wanted to go somewhere along those lines. So I joined the school newspaper. I did certain things outside of the classroom that was cultivating my mind. Because also I had pride about me. I didn't want people thinking I was just a dumb athlete. So, I took more time to present myself in a manner where people wouldn't just look at me as some dumb jock, because, I couldn't have that. My pride wouldn't allow for it. So it was very important for me to cultivate other talents of mine and play many sports. I played soccer. I was in gymnastics at the Lakewood Y for 5 years. I did a bunch of things. And of course, a lot of people from the Bull City assumed I was playing basketball, so I wanted to be well versed in many things, but not just sports.
Got you. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So Wes, for me, I have a question. So the way the question was phrased was kind of powerful within itself, right? So I was a varsity basketball coach, and one thing I always taught my players is, what do you do when the ball goes flat? Right? So you're a veteran free agent right now, and if anybody's watching, why not Wes? Let's just go ahead and put that out there for you, Wes. Why not Wes from Durham? But how do you come to grasp with the fact of right now you're a free agent, but you still need to you still need to live. Like you talked about how some things that you're doing. I know you recently got some awards for the things you do in your current community. But how important is it to be well-rounded and not simply focus on the athletic perspective? And Des, you can speak to this as well. Not be so focused on the athletics that the other part, because we want to focus on the whole child. The rest of you suffers some. So if you could talk about like what happens when the ball goes flat, just in that perspective.
Well, yeah, man, it's kind of a tricky situation, especially if you've been a person who has tied your whole existence to athletics your entire life.
Well, he froze on a great answer he was about to give.
I know, right?
Des, go ahead and while we get Wes back up, Des, go ahead and handle that one for me.
Man, honestly, like Wes was about to say, I can relate. You know, I put a lot of energy into my sport and sports in general. I was a very active kid. I also played every sport in the book before I got to track and field. And you want to have the full package because one day, you know, your professional life as an athlete, it will end. And you're going to want to do something else with your time. And, you know, why not start that early on? And if you have the full package, then you basically open the door for all the opportunities that are out there to come to you, because that's what a lot of sponsors are looking for, organizations. And, you know, I think it's best to do it that way, because if you put all your identity into a sport and when you retire, we've seen it before. A lot of athletes, they can't, you know, they lose their mind in a way. So, yeah.
Okay, appreciate it. Dad,
let me go ahead and jump back on you. We're gonna get right back started like I ain't never left, man. But like I was saying, you know, when you tie your whole existence to a sport, you know, it gets kind of tricky when that sport is no longer with you. But that's why it's so important to cultivate other talents and to be well versed at other things, man. Because you know when it's going to end at some point. It's only a temporary job. Even if you do make it to the top of the top, it's still just a temporary job. And unfortunately, I've had teammates in the past who have actually taken their lives, you know, when situations didn't go their way in a sporting field. So, you know, it gets to that point where, you know, having a sport taken away from you is a form of trauma. Also, you know, being injured is a form of trauma. So, you know, athletes have to deal with that in a different kind of way. So that's, you know, much respect to you, Des, because, you know, I know some guys who can't play a sport with a hangnail, let alone being an amputee, man. So, you know, that's much respect to you, because that takes a whole different level of mentality to be able to execute that.
I appreciate you.
So you guys, go ahead, Dr. Bullock. You guys,
I probably haven't formulated this question as well as I want to, but both of you keep making references to mental health and caring for mental health. And the word therapist has been used. And I was actually on a panel not too long ago where it was a panel of Black men, and the word therapist came up multiple times. If you all wouldn't mind just saying a little bit about, you know, the need that you see for men of color to care for mental health, or how you go about doing that, or just your thoughts on mental health in communities of color in particular.
Yeah, I go ahead and start on that. I mean, that's one of the main reasons I'm here in Haiti as we speak, at a wellness retreat, in a spiritual retreat of some form. But yes, the idea of having someone to talk to and be real about your situation is invaluable, especially in our community. We're dealing with a whole different set of anxiety. We're dealing with a whole different set of pressures that other people aren't dealing with, and we don't talk about it. We try to tough it through. We try to be macho, and we try to, put it out of our mind and act like it doesn't exist, which can actually be more detrimental to us down the line. So it's something that, we got to look at it as not being soft, as being real. Even in the sporting realm, you're not going to win games if you lost the first game and you keep doing the same thing you were doing that first game in the second game. Then you're not going to win. So you got to go to the drawing board. You got to be real with your team and see what needs to be fixed, where you can be better, and then that's how you progress as a person, and that's how you actually progress, mentally and physically. But that's a conversation that definitely needs to be had.
Wes, and thank you for sharing that. But I also want to go back to a point that you made. You talked about the trauma of injury. Mm-hmm. In thinking about in athletics, we know that people suffer physical injuries all the time, but there's a mental trauma that can accompany that. And so having to navigate both of those, is one thing to rehabilitate so that you're physically able to re-engage in a sport, but you also have to be, your mind state has to be there too, has to be healthy also if you're going to be successful. Desmond, any other thoughts about just mental health in general and the need for it?
I would say, like, in my experience, I would say mental health wasn't the top priority for me. Just as a student athlete, you don't have but so much time when you already have so many different priorities that you're taking care of. And I feel like for me, mental health, it kind of slid under the rug, and I had times where I never had any big issues, but I could tell that mentally I might not be where I should be. I might have times where I might be pessimistic or doubtful, or even not have the confidence that I should have. And so mental health is huge. And it, for me, I didn't think mental health would affect me in my sport. I think that was another thing for me, because I worked so hard on the track. I just thought, man, like, I'm good. Like, I can push through it. And like Wes said, you try to forget things that happen to you, in terms of trauma. So I just try to, push through it. Thank God I am where I am today, but I know a lot of kids struggle with that. And you have to know that there's always someone that you can talk to, and you aren't any less of a person for talking about things that you're going through or challenges that you have, or even, self-esteem problems.
Yeah, facts, man. I just want to add a little bit onto that, man. Unfortunately, during my collegiate career, I worked myself up to be the #1 tight end in the country at the University of South Carolina, only to be suspended by the NCAA during my senior year for accepting impermissible benefits. Now, I don't know if I was heading into a big season, so they literally took the sport away from me, weeks before the season started. I was the only one from the team who was suspended. I still had to stay in school and watch my guys play sports and do things while I'm trying to, get back on the field for something that I didn't believe was wrong. And so at 20 years old, here I am dealing with a grown people issue where I've been kicked out of school for accepting money, which is now legal, by the way, in the NCAA, but that's another story. But, having to deal with something like that on my own and being real hard on myself and feeling like I embarrassed my family and all of these things, man, it's pretty hard to deal with, especially when no one wants to admit that they're embarrassed. No one wants to admit that their feelings are hurt, because it makes it look like we have a sign of weakness. But I do realize my weakest points turn me into the man I am now and added strength to my repertoire.
Yeah. Dr. Bill, I was going to ask a question along the same lines. I think for Black men or students, and, we tend to bottle things up. Des, you made mention about how we'll try to forget them. Yeah, we'll bottle it up, right? And you know what happens when you continue to put something inside of a bottle? At some point in our lives, they blow up.
Right.
They blow up. And for us, it looks different. Right? Sometimes people might try to take their life because of that. Then you want to find out, because it's important. Dr. Bullock and I, to be transparent, we were sitting in a meeting, and one young man was talking about when he's ready to go to college and he needs help, or he's struggling with some things, who can he go to? And in that particular meeting, there was an adult there who kind of glossed over the question without simply saying what you guys are saying today, that it's okay to go get help, right? And for all of the young kings and all of everyone who's here and everyone who's listening, it's okay if you're not okay to go and ask for help. Right? You have a young man who's played in the NFL, you have a young man who's going to be participated in the Olympics this year telling you that it's okay. So whatever your friends that's in the same grade telling you, I'm going to give more credit to these young men than your friends, right? But I also have to shout out my community partners who joined today. We got Thomas Mentor Leadership Academy join us. I appreciate you, Larry. We have Charles Hamilton Houston Foundation, DeWarren. I saw you. I appreciate you guys being in the building. But we have a question from some people that are in the chat. What advice do you give young men who have problems with cultivating friendships, right, in school? So what advice, and either one of you, would you give young men on cultivating friendships?
I go on that one first, man. The first thing you got to do is become your own best friend. I tell people that all the time, man. You know, you can't have other people. Nobody else is going to like you if you don't like you. So, you know, I grew up, I was real heavy. I had a big gap in my teeth. You know, people made fun of me. But once I started getting comfortable with who I am, that's when I started to attract people who liked me for who I was. And the friendships became more comfortable, became more organic, and I was actually able to learn things from people because I wasn't worried about what people thought about me. I was just going through life being comfortable who I am. So, Biz?
I would say, you know, basically what Wes said, you have to be your own best friend, you know, to start off with, and to love yourself to begin with. I definitely, like, I experienced this 100% firsthand in middle school and high school. And the way I got through it wasn't that I had a problem creating friendships, but I was just reluctant to make new friendships. And the people that were in my life already, they kept me motivated, and they kept me, you know, they supported me through that phase. And they helped me to, you know, basically learn myself and figure out who I was. Because as a kid, you have so much to learn and experience. And through life, I got better at it. And, you know, you just can't be too hard on yourself. You know, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to, you know, make decisions that we wish we could change. But it's always another opportunity to make that right decision.
Yep. And another thing to add on to that, man, you know, as we, especially as men of color, start to come into our own power, start to understand our purpose, right? We have more to give to society. Now it's going to be more important to vet your friends, to, you know, be careful who you bring around you, because now, you know, everybody's going to want to be your friend once you start tapping into who you really are, start becoming successful, and everybody's going to want to be your friend. So then you might have some energies around you who may not be beneficial to your purpose and what you're trying to do going forward. So I think more importantly than cultivating the friendship is actually having a standard of what you want your friends to be and what they want and what they stand for.
Yeah, appreciate that, guys. It's really easy to jump over a bar that's set low, right? Yeah. It's really easy to jump over a bar. So when you're talking about expectations and getting friends to meet those, if you know who you are, right? And you talked about this in your first, like Wes said, you have to learn to love yourself. When you know who you are, or when you figure out, because sometimes our young kings are still trying to figure out who they are, and their environment is shaping who they are, but they know who they don't want to be, right? So they have to have an understanding of, I don't need to lower the bar to just get friends. Because what's going to happen is a poor man can never tell you how to get rich. So you can't hang around with people that's making F's and you are expecting that you're going to make A's.
Hey, it is what it is.
So check this. There's another question from the comment section, and you guys can speak. I'm going to read it exactly what it says, and then you figure out how you want to tackle it, because right now you guys have the floor. What can Black fathers and white fathers do specifically to promote racial justice, equity, and harmony when raising their children? I'll say that again. What can Black fathers and white fathers do specifically to promote racial justice, equity, and harmony when raising their children? I put it on the screen for you.
Okay, I like that. I like that question. That's a very honest question, and the answer comes within honesty as well. Like, we got to be honest. We got to have these conversations earlier. Like, unfortunately, you know, like you said, it's a lot of things that have been going on in the country as of late, and you know, kids are seeing this younger and younger, and you know, the youngsters are understanding what's going on. So now it's time to be honest with ourselves about our feelings. Talk about what makes us uncomfortable. Talk about where we have questions where we don't know the answers, because you know, there's a cultural difference for sure, but only thing that comes from a misunderstanding is fear. That's the worst thing that can come from misunderstanding other people is fear. And you don't act or respond wisely out of fear. So, you know, we have to understand each other more and be honest about what exactly we're feeling, and not take them home and only be teaching our kids one thing and then out in public we're acting another way, because that's a whole different set of manipulation that we don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Disney.
Transparency is key, like Wes said. And me personally, my opinion is that, you know, everybody should be treated equally, you know, whether they're white, black, you know, poor, rich, whatever the case may be. We should always treat everyone with fairness and, you know, just be peaceful with everyone, you know.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I do have a couple more schools. CC Spalding, I'm not sure if I know that CC Spalding is in the house. I appreciate CC Spalding being. Dr. Bullock, go ahead.
Did you shout out Burton? I think I saw a comment from the Kings coordinator from Burton. So Burton has joined us also.
Burton, thank you so much for being here, Master Freddie McNeil. Thank you so much, sir. One more question. This is from Southwest Elementary. Could you please speak to Kings about being leaders and not followers? So often our young men follow bad leadership. And I'm gonna say that last part one more time for the people in the back. It's not just young men that follow bad leaders. That's it. Okay, now you go ahead and answer that one. And hopefully that didn't go with nobody's head.
Go ahead, Dez. You started off.
Man, you know, there's so many false prophets out here, and you know, you're going to make mistakes. You know, we're in the social media era, so you know it's kind of inevitable. But I would say, you know, have a standard and figure out what principles and morals, you know, that matter most to you, and follow those people and those role models that lead by example in those specific areas. And if you do that, I feel like, you know, you're going in the right direction.
Cool. Thank you, Dr. Bullock. Let's go to our next question for the panel, because I think we are right at 15 minutes remaining.
Yeah. So in the next question, one, I do want to go back and just affirm what you all have been saying about loving yourself first, and just thinking about the role of that in leadership. Like, that's, you know, and not like an egotistical type love, but you have to care for who you are as an individual, a healthy self-love. All right. So thank y'all for sharing that. And I don't know if that'll connect to this question. This question does connect to some of the other things that we have seen in the chat on social media. But the question is, if you could tell your elementary, middle, or high school self something now, what would that be? So I'll repeat the question. Wes just joined us. If you could tell your elementary, middle, or high school self something now, what would that be and why? What would you tell yourself?
I'll go ahead and start it off. I would tell myself to just keep believing in myself, and everybody is wrong about everything. That's what I tell you. Know, once I started growing up, my opinions really didn't matter. Most people had their own set of things going on behind closed doors. So all the pressure that I put on myself was just me being in my head too much. So unfortunately, that's where anxiety and depression and things of that nature can come up, because I was in my head too much. You know, I don't know, people who on right now from the Bull City, they know I used to be a little over 300 pounds. My nickname back in the day used to be Big Puddin' back at Riverside, because you know I was just big, man. But of course I was good at sports, but I was very self-conscious about my weight and about other things. So I would just tell myself, man, take it easy. You're beautiful. and to keep striving to be the best every day, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think Wes is 100% right. For me, I would say stay humble, also to continue to believe in myself, but really to continue to strive for greatness and to just always strive to improve. Because no matter how good you are, even at a young age, there's always room to improve. And just be confident in your abilities. You're gonna have strengths and weaknesses, but always work with those strengths and work on those weaknesses as you get older.
Yep. And I don't know if I could, before I got cut off, I'll go back to the last question about how do we follow good leaders and create good leaders. Well, I think it's all about being the best leader that you can be in your position, because unfortunately some of the leaders that we have are put into the position of leader. They didn't earn that position. So then we have other people who are more qualified for the leadership position who are just happen to be underlings, but they can sometimes have more of an effect than the so-called leader who has the title. So, sometimes we look at the title too much of what a leader is, and sometimes we need to embody actually what a leader is and what he provides in the field. So,
Thank you. So we're going to go to some other questions from the comment section. This is a little deep, so you guys can handle this one the way you want to. Can you speak to the toxic masculinity and how it is more damaging to our kings than helpful? What is your advice to these young men when it comes to loving one another?
Well, you want to go, Des?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go. I would say, you're going to experience it, but from other people, but you have to take a stance where, right from wrong, and at the end of the day, if you're getting that energy, that doesn't mean that you should return it. And my advice for young men, when it comes to loving one another, be patient with one another. We all make mistakes, and you have to remember that even when someone hurts your feelings or gets to your emotions, and be forgiving, in any situation.
Yep, I agree with that, man. Just to start off, unfortunately, I've never heard the term toxic femininity, right? Unfortunately, we the ones who get tagged with that term toxic masculinity, but that's because we can handle it. As men, one of my favorite books that I always encourage people to read is The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida, where he talks about men understanding our feminine side. That in life, that everything has a duality. So unfortunately for us, we believe in, being tough, being hard, the aggressive approach. And unfortunately, that's not the approach we should have all the time. We should be able to, tap into our sensitive side without pointing it as being quote unquote gay. Nothing wrong with being gay, but, unfortunately, too long, that's been a stigma in our community that if we enjoy things that women enjoy, then that will make us less of a man. We have to let go of that mindset and really understand who we are. Once you become more comfortable with yourself, then you won't even have to be worried about what everybody else is saying, because there won't be such thing as toxic masculinity once we learn the duality of what our feminine side brings to the table. Because that's something that I encourage and I preach all the time, man. Because you're not going to feel the full spectrum of what life is about if you're only operating from one side of the table.
So great, thank you. So Wes, you just said a good one. I like that, Wes. I might steal that one. I will give you all of none of the credit. All of none of the credit.
Got it.
So Wes, question from one of the students is, what does it feel like to be on the field? When you're playing football in the NFL, what does it feel like to be on the field?
Well, Ronald Jones Jr., I'm gonna be real with you, man. It's magic. That's a place where I consider myself to be an artist on the football field. That's where my artistry takes place, because I can do different things on the field, man. So that's my happy place. That's a place where honestly I can say at this point it's a meditative space for me, because I'm able to take myself to a mentality that I can't take just every day on the street. I can do things on the field that I can't do elsewhere, and that's what makes it so special. Things are allowed there. You're able to be yourself. You're able to bring your own mentality and grit to the game. So I think it's very special. But I'm able to find that nirvana in other areas as well. Whether I'm writing, whether I'm on the basketball court, the people in the Bull City know I hoop too. So whether it's wherever it's at, I'm able to get that mindset.
So, Des, can you speak? How does it feel for you to be on the field? Because you're getting ready. You're going to the Olympics, right? Yeah. So, like, tell me about that. Like, that process of getting there. And how's that going to feel when you get to Tokyo?
Man, it's going to feel amazing. You know, right now I'm focused on the process. This is actually my second attempt to make a team. I made my first team going to Rio when I was 16 years old in 2016. And back then I was just focused on the end goal. But really, in anything you do, you have to really enjoy the process, because that's really where you're spending most of your time. And like Wes said, for me, being on the track and training is my sanctuary. That's where I meditate. That's where I feel like I'm at my most. I'm my most. You know, I have the most confidence in myself, and I just go out there and do what I do. You know, it's natural for me to run track, and I just try and do my best at it.
Appreciate it.
Man, y'all some deep brothers. I just want y'all to know that y'all on a whole other level. I need to get.
We gotta take it there, man. You know what I'm saying? Too long. Hey, we can't play around no more. We got to put it all on the table.
So while y'all going all in, I need y'all to answer this question. I need you guys to give a little advice to our kings on how they can advocate for themselves and ask for help when needed. Because sometimes we don't want to ask for help, right? You in the back of the class, you don't want to ask because, people, sometimes you raise your hand in class, people talk on you, or they be like, why are you raising your hand? Let's go on to the next thing. So how do they advocate for themselves and ask for help when needed?
I would say probably the biggest thing, I don't want to cut you off there, man. One of the biggest things for me is to write it down, right? You got to write down exactly how you're feeling, and you'll be able to verbalize. Once you see the words on the paper, sometimes you might think you're feeling one thing and you write it down and you're feeling another. So one thing is to become clear on what it is that you want. Sometimes we're asking for help in areas when we need help in a whole different area because unfortunately we haven't compartmentalized what we really need help in. So once you write it down and get clear on what it is that you need help on, then you won't even have to say it out loud. You can slide a note to your teacher, slide the note to someone else. Hopefully they can read, but that'll be the premise of it because it doesn't always have to come out of your mouth.
Yeah, Wes said it best. And you can also, man, talk to your parents. If you can't talk to your parents, talk to your friends. If you can't talk to your friends, talk to your teachers. If you can't talk to your teachers, if you have advisors, reach out to them. And look for that one-on-one time. If you have something that you want to talk about, you can always do it in private. And, that's what I got. Yeah.
Start going with your gut, man. Like I say, the gut is the second brain. We have the answers inside of us. So once you get to a point where you understand yourself, you understand the psychology of what patterns you have, then you can start actually consulting with yourself. We call that prayer. We call that consulting with with our creator in the universe, however you want to call it. But, once you're able to tap into that, you won't need anybody else to tell you because you already know the answer.
Great. So quick question, directed towards Wes. Des, I would love to hear your take on it as well from Mr. Hopkins. So Wes, it says, growing up, of the many skills your father equipped you with as an African-American young man, what was the most impactful?
Good question, Mr. Hopkins. Hope you're doing all right, big dog. But I will say, my dad, he equipped me with a lot going forward, I will say. But one of the biggest things was literacy. Me understanding the importance of reading and books and the knowledge that was to be had from reading. He was one of the guys who imparted on me at a very young age the fact that in the U.S. at some point, blacks weren't allowed to read. It was something that was forbidden to us to be able to read a book. And why that, I was so intrigued about why they felt that was so dangerous for us. Why was that the thing that they wouldn't allow us to do? And then I was able to see the power in it, and the power in being educated, being well versed, and understanding literature and what words mean. Because then you can actually communicate things better. You can talk about your feelings better if you know exactly what you want to say and how you want to say it.
Okay, cool. Hey, check this one. I got another question. Dan, did you want to touch that?
Nah, you can go on to
okay, cool. Tell me what you guys did, right? When you had your hand raised in class and your teacher didn't call on you and you got upset, but she kept calling on someone else. And then Not raising your hand. So tell me how y'all handle the raising of the hand, not getting called on, frustrated. Because some of the kings, they raise their hand. The teacher don't think they know the answer, so they don't call on them. Not all teachers do it. They don't do it in Durham. They do it in other districts.
Yeah.
But so share with us, how do you guys handle that? Or how did you handle that?
For me, like, I'm a humble type of person, so I always had, like, the mentality, like, if they don't call on you now, they're gonna call on you later. So I feel like it's always good to let other people talk and to express their opinion, and everybody deserves an opportunity at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I'll touch on that, man. I ain't gonna lie, that kind of happened to me a few times in my AP and honors classes when I was in high school, man. And I had to take the approach that I was humble enough to know that, hey, I knew the answer already, so it doesn't matter if you call on me or not. I was trying to do you a favor, Mr. Teacher. So I kind of had to start looking at it in that aspect instead of taking it so personally all the time, because honestly it did bother me a few times.
Yeah, and honestly, again, nothing wrong with being bothered by that. And it does go back to what y'all were saying earlier about ways of advocating. You know what I'm saying? And there may be times, I'm sorry, Wes, but when you talked about the honors and AP classes, that struck a nerve with me, because that's something we're still working on with students of color in our district, that they don't have as many situations to navigate like that. But if they are in that situation, we do want them to feel empowered to advocate for themselves and to make sure that they're getting the same opportunities that others are getting. So I'm sorry, you mentioned that, and I was like, yeah, we need to speak on that.
Let me shout out Miss Clark.
Men that need to hear that.
Yeah, for real. Shout out Miss Clark back in the day from Club Boulevard, Humanities Magnet School, man. That was a big turning point in my life, the academically and intellectually gifted class. I was a part of that. It was only about 12 of us in the school, but me being a part of that, man, opened up my eyes to a lot of things. And of course, unfortunately, being smart in the Black community for Black men is not always the prize. It's almost looked down upon. Like, oh, you smart. You think you're smarter than us. So I had to take an approach. I didn't even want to be in the class. So, I had to have people around me let me know that it was okay to be smart. It was okay to achieve and reach higher and higher and push yourself and set a standard educationally.
Yeah, and I'll just speak briefly to that. When we have schools or classes or AIG classes for that matter, and there aren't many of us in there, it does send a message that those advanced classes aren't for the students of color. Yep. So it is really on, I also say it's on educators to make sure that those spaces are reflective of the cultures of the schools, and they are reflective of the brilliant Black and brown minds that we have in our schools. Because sometimes we just want to pick one or two to put in there and
fit the status quo.
Yeah, then you're separated from the rest of the community, and you know what I'm saying? So why not build that community in the class? So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Hey guys, I know I told y'all 1 hour. These people get giving us questions. Check this.
It's cool.
Listen, check this. So here's my question for you, right? As Black men, what is the biggest lesson you've learned about being young, gifted, and Black? Right? So what is the biggest lesson you've learned about being young, gifted, and Black? Because both of you are gifted, clearly. Intellectually, physically, you guys have dropped so many gems and so many nuggets tonight. The chat's been blowing up. Shout out to everyone who's joined us on YouTube and Facebook. But if you guys could just share, what's the biggest lesson you've learned about being young, gifted, and Black?
I'll go first. The biggest lesson for me is to not be complacent. For me, nobody necessarily pushed me to run track and field. My mother actually was one that always asked if I wanted to quit or give up, and I always said no. I always, wanted to have more for myself. I always wanted to play sports. I always wanted to be a professional athlete, even when people told me that, I couldn't do it, and that, I was disabled or I couldn't, whatever the case may be. People will, try and put you down if they can't do it. but you always have to believe in yourself and, just keep moving forward one day at a time. You're going to make mistakes, but it's okay. You can always look forward to that next day.
Wes may have frozen.
Yeah, froze.
Dr. Bullock, while we wait on Wes, could you share with us about the equity policy?
Yeah, just really quickly. First of all, thank you to everyone that has joined us for this first installment of King's Conversations. I mean, this has been amazing. I'll be thanking Wes and Desmond again, but I really want to thank them for joining us with this. We have a number of different equity initiatives going on in DPS, and one of the things we're working on right now is an equity policy for DPS that will govern some of the work that we're doing as a district. So very soon, we're going to be rolling out an opportunity for people to review some of the pillars of our equity policies. I just wanted to give people a heads up on that. And some of those pillars of our policy will be focused on disrupting systemic inequities, ensuring access and representation in academic programming in schools, building staff capacity for equity-based teaching and learning, and also some social emotional learning. Ironically, a lot of the things that Wes and Desmond have been speaking about today are exactly the types of ideas that are informing the policy we're trying to create. So I just wanted to give a heads up about that, because we should be rolling out an opportunity for our community to give us some feedback on the pillars of the policy in the next couple of weeks. So that's it. Thank you, Mr. Porter.
Wes, go ahead. Yeah, we weren't gonna go nowhere, Wes. We know you.
Man, I told you I'm jumping right back on, baby. We in this thing, man. But like the question said, one of the biggest things I had to learn about being young, gifted, and Black is that not everybody's gonna be happy for you. Right, so you get to see a little bit of the downside of being popular or being good, quote unquote. But I think that even speaks to more how we need to get back to togetherness. Right, we got to be our own biggest fans. Right, we got to clap for one another when we win. We got to be supportive of one another. It can't be crabs in a barrel. We got to be able to uplift each other. There's an abundance out there, so we got to know that there's enough for everybody. So you can help your brother up, and in doing so, you're gonna help yourself up too, because service to others is the rent we pay for our room here on earth, like Muhammad Ali said, man. So that stuff is gonna carry us a long way, being there for each other.
Man, guys, I appreciate both of you joining us today. We're not out of word, but we're out of time. I always want to respect your time. But for everybody who's tuning in, someone said we want to amplify King's Conversation, it's going down again. Mark your calendars. February 18th at 6 o'clock, we have owner-operator of a pizza franchise. His name is Ephraim Yates. He'll be joining us on February the 18th. So save your questions. We're going to be doing this.
Let me know if you need me to come back, man, because I'll be up in the thing.
Listen, so check this. We also, our Kings, will holler at Desmond and Wesley to see if I'm sure they'll be more than happy to come on and speak to your you guys, Kings programs individually. But on behalf of Durham Public Schools, our Board of Education, our Superintendent, Dr. Mubanga, our Executive Director of Equity Affairs, Dr. Bullock, thank you so much, Desmond. Thank you, Wesley. We are DPS. Thank you.